So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's Family Money Night, where Germain will be talking to us about how to start that conversation with as a family to talk about something that many of us are uncomfortable talking about, and that's money. And he will give us some tips, make this as interactive as possible. So please join in if you're asked a question. But just to do a brief introduction, Jermaine, he hails from New York City. Him and his family just relocated to the Sunshine State of Florida. Jermaine has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to financial services, even though like many of us that starts this journey, that wasn't what he used to do, but this is now his new path, his new passion. He has a joy for helping families and individuals figure out exactly what it is that they need in their financial wheelhouse to fill those gaps when it comes to the income gap. So without further ado, I will turn it over to my brother from another mother, Germain Turby.
All right, all right. Well, thank you for that introduction, Latricia. I appreciate that. And yeah, I absolutely love what I do, right? And yeah, let's get into it tonight, right? Let's get into it. So good morning, everyone. No, no, good mornings. I was just checking.
You was
Just
just checking, make sure that we caught
yeah.
that.
Yeah, just checking to see. I was like, so like, what? Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not on the other side of the world. It is evening. I was just checking in. So, tonight is Family Money Night, right? We're going to be talking about money, right? It's a topic that not all families sit down and talk about, right? So today, isn't about becoming rich overnight or learning overly complicated financial strategies, right? We're going to keep things simple. It's all about learning how to have healthy conversations about money at home, right? And the truth is many of us grew up in households where money was either stressful or secretive or just never talked about, right? Yet every day we're expected to make financial decisions as adults, right? I was actually just texting one of my cousins. I'm like, man, we were sold the dream of being an adult as a kid. You're like, oh, when I'm an adult, I can do this and I can do that. And now I'm like, I just want to be a kid again. Right? Like, I got to worry about pay. It's like I'm married to my beautiful, beautiful wife, and we have four amazing children. And I was telling Latricia we just spent the week in Destin, Florida, which is one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever been to. And I was born in Dominican Republic, and like we got some beautiful beaches in DR, but like Destin is like, mm, it's like, man, why didn't we just move here? Right? We like this so much, we extended the trip like an extra 3 days. And if you've ever been on vacation, when you extend a trip, that means you extend all of the expenses that come with that. It's like, whoo. I came back, I was like, I just want to sleep until more money comes into my account. Can we just do that? Can we all just like sleep until our accounts are replenished? So hopefully in this hour, we're gonna change the that familiarity of being secretive or not talking about money at home. Because here's the thing that I know about money. It's not the most important thing in the world, but it's right up there with oxygen, right? Like you can't live without oxygen, but you also can't live without money, right? Unfortunately. So that's right, Karen. I needed a vacation from my vacation. Right? So this workshop is designed for everyone in the family, parents, grandparents, teenagers, and even younger children can take away something valuable, right? So my hope is that when we all leave tonight, when you all leave, you'll continue to have these conversations around your own dinner table, right? So we're going to make this interactive. There's no wrong answers. Nobody's going to judge you. This isn't like middle school where if you say the wrong thing, people are going to point and laugh. We're not doing that. Okay. So I'd love for you to participate, right? So let's start with a simple question. Okay. Um, all right. So we're going to start with one simple question. Oh, wait, let me go back. The theme here is very simple, right? We're going to learn together. We're going to grow together. We're going to build together. All right. Why? Because, or you know what? Before I even get into that, who here talks about money frequently in the home, right? Let me like kind of want to gauge. Yes, Karen said yes. Awesome. So when I grew up in New York City, like Patricia was saying, um, we didn't talk about money like at all. It was like I knew that my dad worked pretty much all the time for money. And my mom reminded me of that every time we went to the store. She was like, no, 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 no. Um, but then, when she started doing better as an entrepreneur, things changed. Like we didn't really talk about it, but I kind of just noticed, right? Like when all our bills were paid because dad worked. But then when mom was doing really good in business, it was kind of like we went to the stores and she was like, "Yeah, you could have that. You could have this. You could have that." So I just knew like, okay, we had more money, but we didn't really talk about it, right? So with my wife and my kids, we talk about money, right? We talk about money because I think it's important for the foundation to be laid when kids are young, right? Like when my oldest daughter, she's 13 now. Oh my goodness. Can't believe I just said that out loud. But yeah, she's 13 now. And I remember when she was 9 years old, um, I helped her start her very first business. And she was selling edible slime in school, right? So I was teaching her about money. I was like, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna pay for all your startup fees or all your business startup fees, all your material, right? I think it was like $80 or something, a whole bunch of stuff on Amazon. Got all these ingredients. She started making money. So I was like, hey, when you make money, you bring it back. And here's what we're going to do, we're going to have a portion of money go back to the business, right? We're going to have a portion of money go save, portion of money go here, portion of money go there. You can spend this much. And she didn't really like that. Right? She was like, hey, why can't I just spend it all? And we had to have that conversation, right? And then she understood and she ended up making almost $500 that year, right? So it was definitely a learning experience. I would say for all of us, because I learned how to manage a child's business, right? And have a child as a saleswoman, which was pretty fun. Um, but yeah, so we like to talk about money because it's gonna be an important part of their lives as adults, right? So, financial success isn't about something one person in the family carries alone, kind of like how my family was when I was growing up, right? Because the strongest families make financial decisions together. And even though my wife has been a stay-at-home mom for over a decade, like we make the decisions together, right? That doesn't mean that kids need to know every single detail about the household finances, but they should understand healthy money habits, right? Like if you think about it this way, your kids watch everything you do, right? They notice whether we save, they notice when we give, They notice when we argue about money. They don't notice when we plan. And even though when we think they're not listening, they're always listening. And guess what? They're learning, because kids learn more what they see than what they hear, right? So, like, how many of you can remember something your parents said about money when you were growing up, right? Everybody here, right? Because those lessons stick with us for decades, right? So, today we're going to create better lessons for the next generation, all right? So, let's be honest, right? Many people would rather talk politics than money, unfortunately. And some families never discuss finances because they believe that it's a private subject. And others avoid it because it creates tension, right? Unfortunately, silence doesn't teach financial wisdom. And someone is going to teach our kids about money. It may be social media, it may be advertisement, it may be school, it may be friends, or it could be us as the parents, right? I'd much rather teach my kids financial habits than rather than learning them from people on TikTok or TV, right? So, like, raise your hand if you wish someone had taught you more about money before being an adult. And I'll be the first one to raise my hand. Karen raised two hands, right? So that's exactly why we're here, right? We have an opportunity to give our kids a head start that many of us never had, right? So before we talk about dollars, we're going to talk about what money actually means to us, right? So what does money mean? And for different people, it may mean different things because we all hold different values, right? But I want you to think about this just for a moment. When you hear the word money, what's the very first word that comes to your mind? And there's no wrong answers. You could put your answers in the chat. All right. What's the very first word that comes to mind when you hear the word money? Okay. Okay. So somebody said bills, right? Oh, we got somebody else joining. Somebody said bills. Somebody said freedom. Somebody said debt. In my mind, I was thinking recovering from this vacation. Right? So the first word that we associate money to tells us about how we feel about money, right? Maybe for you it's freedom or stress or somebody said a yacht. I love it. I love it, right? Or a yacht or bills or vacation or an opportunity, family, right? But if you see everyone sees money differently, right? Because money itself isn't emotional, it's a tool, but our experiences with money is what gives it meaning, right? If you grew up and you had everything you ever wanted, money's going to mean something different than someone who grew up with a lot less than what they want, right? Because if somebody grew up worrying about bills and stuff like that, then money may represent security, right? But if someone watched their family having a bunch of arguments, money may represent stress, right? Like me and my wife had different views around money when we first got married. Because my view was I kind of took my mom's thought process of like, okay, money answers all things. Um, and also the more I have, the more I can do, the more freedom I have. It means freedom, right? I know for my dad, it meant security, right? For my wife, it's a little bit different, all right? We had different views, right? So we didn't always see eye to eye in the beginning, right? Because those meanings don't appear by accident, right? They're formed over time, okay? So every family has values, right? Some families value education, others value travel, generosity, saving for the future, right? The funny thing is though, our spending usually reveals our value much more honestly than what our words say, right? If I looked at someone's calendar and their spending habits, I could learn a lot about what matters most to them, right? Like even in our business, when someone comes on board and they say, "Hey, I want to do this, 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 and this. I want to make this much, and I'm ready, and I'm fired up, and I'm, pumped up." And then, um, I ask them to join a call, or I ask them to do this, or I invite them to a special event, and they're like, "Oh no, I gotta go do this. Oh, I gotta do this, or oh, I gotta," So that tells me where their values are and what their priorities are, right? Because money isn't just numbers, it's priorities, right? Like I want you to ask yourself, what do I want my children to believe about money? Is that something to fear, or is that something to manage wisely? Is that something that's only for spending, or something that can create opportunities? Because these lessons begin with us, right? Like if your children described money habits in one sentence, what would you want them to say? Does anybody want to share?
That I'm able to live comfortably and do the things that I enjoy doing without having to stress or worry about money.
Okay. That sounds like a very adult sentence. No, I love that, right? I know my daughter, both of my daughter's sentence would sound like, "Hey, I want to buy as much squishies as possible." Right? But no, and then my kids are different, right? Like I have one of my daughters is like spend, spend, spend. Um, my other daughter, um, she's more like "Hey, can we go do something?" Right? Like I have one of my daughters is like, "No, I want to buy things." My other daughter's like, "No, I want to go do things." One of my sons is like, "I'm not spending my money at all." Like he literally has like almost every dollar he's made or been gifted in the past like 2 years. And my other son is like animals and fun, right? So they're all different, but what I would hope that they say is that um money habits are wise choices to live a fulfilled life, right? Because living a fulfilled life for me is like, yes, we got to have security, we got to have everything, um, our household taken care of, but also we got to give. We have to create opportunities, right? So I love that everybody has a different view, right? So most beliefs started much earlier than we realize, right? So when we think about how does common money sayings impact your life as an adult, right? Like when you think about, let's put this in the chat. What were some common sayings growing up? Like what are some common things that you heard, right? And as these come up in the chat, I'll say for me, my mom, I'll say the PG version. So one of the things that my mom would say was like, money doesn't grow on trees. Right. That's right. Somebody just put that in chat. Right. Money doesn't grow on trees. Or when I say, hey, I want to get this, she'll be like, how do I say this? Okay. She'll say, yeah, I'm gonna pay for it with the hairs on my head, right? Or or something that my dad would say was like, hey, you have to work hard for your money, right? Like you have to work extremely hard for your money. Right. Somebody said, easy come, easy go, right? Easy come, easy go. When you earn your own money, you can spend it like you want to. I used to tell my kids that. You only live once. I thought that about money in my 20s, and I wish I was taught better. Right? But see, all of these different sayings affected us now as adults, right? Because they tell us what we are to believe about money as an adult, right? And it controls the the way we value money, which controls our priorities, which then controls how we spend money, right? So tonight I'm gonna introduce our company, right? So our company is Global Financial Impact, and we've partnered with over 30 A-rated financial institutions. Over 30. I always mess this up when I say this because there's a bunch of F's. 30 Fortune 500 financial institutions. There we go. Right. And the reason for that is because we can create a win-win-win scenario and help the families, the individuals, and the businesses that we're able to serve. Right. Because when we sit down with a family, we focus on the financial education, and then we partner them up with one of these multi-billion-dollar or multi-trillion-dollar firms, and we don't charge them anything, right? And then these firms pay us directly out of their marketing budget, right? So it's a win-win scenario. We meet with a client, they don't pay us, so our services are complementary to them. It's a win for the client. They end our conversation in a better financial situation. That's a win. We partner them up with one of these companies. They now gain a client for the next 10, 20, 30 plus years. That's a win for these companies. And then they come back and they pay us ridiculous amounts of money to do this, which is a win for us, right? And I love helping people. I love educating, if you hadn't noticed, right? Our founders have 100 plus years of combined experience. We're licensed in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, Canada, Virgin Islands, and actually, we do business in 55 countries as of today, right? So it's super, super awesome being a part of an organization that values education, right? I tell people all the time, I have a business and accounting degree, and I took tons of tax courses, and I learned more being in the business than I about taxes and finances than I did in college. So it's very important, right? So the reason why we do what we do is because everyone works for money, right? Or they provide some type of value, right? So business owners provide value with their businesses. People who work as employees provide value with their time, right? Just like authors provide value with books, or actors and people in sports, they provide value with entertainment. And we get paid money based off of the value that we provide to the world. So the more value we create for more people, the more money that we make, right? And a lot of us work hard, right? A lot of us work hard. Like I remember growing up, I would spend one day with my dad a week, right? He would take us to the park every Saturday. That was like the day that we spent with dad. Other than that, by the time I got up for school, he was already working, or no, by the time I got up for school, he was sleeping. And by the time I got back from school, he would pick me up, drop me off, and go back to work. That was our interaction all week. And then Saturday mornings, we'd go to the park, we'd play. Around the afternoon, he'd go to work. Right? So everybody has a different experience about money or with money, right? Now, the reason why we do what we do and we provide so much education is because we know that not everyone gets the education growing up, right? I remember graduating high school in Ohio, and I went to many different schools growing up. Like I lived in the Bronx, I lived some time in Miami, I lived some time in Ohio, and then I moved to the suburbs of Columbus um, when I graduated, and that was the only school that taught a little bit about money. They had an investment class, and it was all about stocks, and that's pretty much that was it, right? So we love to teach on how money grows, what you can do with your money, um, the different how compound interest affects your money and taxes as well, right? Because that affects everything that we make as an adult. Okay. It's probably not the most fun subject to talk about, right? But it's something that we got to talk about. All right. So also, I'll say this before I continue. The more you know, the better you can do. The more you know, the more you can teach your kids, right? So each generation gets better and better and better and better and better, right? So we teach responsibility through practice, right? So we're going to talk about allowances. All right. Now, what's everyone's thoughts on allowances? What's everyone's thoughts on allowances? Some parents believe kids should have allowances. Some parents believe that they don't. Some have stipulations. What's everyone's thoughts on allowances? Okay. No work, no money. That's one way to put it. What's everyone's thoughts on allowances? I want to see what you all think before I share what I think. Right? Because some parents believe kids should automatically get an allowance. Others believe that, you know, the money has to be earned. There's no perfect answer, right? The important thing is that whatever system you choose teaches responsibility rather than entitlement. All right. Allowance is a great tool and age appropriate by doing chores. I agree with that, right? Like we have a list of things that is expected from our kids that they do not get paid for. That is their contribution to the home, right? Because I pay for everything. So, like, y'all not getting a free ride, right? You got to do this, this, and this, which is really like read, brush your teeth, make your bed, right? Just like super simple things. And then there's other, and also they wanted me to buy them a dog, and I got to buy dog food and take the dog to the vet and wash the dog and all this other expenses from the dog. So, like, walking the dog is not a payable chore, right? But there are payable chores in my house. Like, I give my oldest son a couple dollars when he helps my 5-year old to read, right? Because that helps mom and dad because she's very aggressive with us when we teach her how to read, and she loves to test our patience. So when he does it, I'm listening, right? I'm like, man. she don't be this nice to me when I read with her, right? So there's some chores that they can get paid on. There's other chores where they don't get paid on, right? Because we live in the real world, right? Like we can't have our kids growing up thinking that just because they're an adult that the world is going to pay them, right? You can't just get everything you want without providing value of some sort, right? So, um, as adults, like we work, we solve problems, we contribute. Our kids can learn the same principles in age appropriate ways, right? So for younger children, um, you know, making the bed, feeding the pet, right? Helping set the table, helping clean up, things like that, right? As kids grow older, you increase the responsibility. Like I'm about to teach my oldest how to drive, which is whew, that's scary, right? Um, but she does a lot, right? Like she's helping with laundry, she helps clean up the house, dishes, um, organizing, help with her siblings. Um, when she when we decide that she is responsible enough to babysit and old enough to babysit, then she will get paid for that. But yeah, right. So parents, what was your first job? I'm curious to know what was your first job? I remember my first job. I Yeah, go ahead. You can unmute or put it in the chat.
So my first job that I actually got paid just strictly cash was staying overnight with an elderly neighbor to make sure that she had someone in the house with her at nighttime.
Okay. Yeah, we grew up in a different neighborhood. That was not common in my neighborhood. Babysitting at 10-ish. Okay, that means you're very responsible. That's pretty good. How about you, Miss Eunice?
I come from a home or a family where we weren't given money. I mean, we weren't like if we had to go to school, we ate. You were full before you went out, so you wouldn't be given money. And so, growing up, I started like that with my daughter too, until
Mm,
she came to this country. And for her, she saw that I was always busy. Like I was resonating with you when you were talking about your dad. Yeah, I'm the only person for her, so I was always out working. And I loved her for the fact that when we moved here for the first time in this house, anything I bought, she assembled it. She's so good, like technical stuff. She assembled all the furniture, TV, everything.
wow.
Up to now, she can even fix her own car, stuff in her car.
Wow.
So for money, I didn't go through that until probably in going to high school.
Mm,
Yes,
okay.
I grew up in a home like that. And come Africa, we do that. That's what we don't. I don't know what's going on right now, but most people won't give money to children to go to school. It's not like they didn't have, but for me, my parents, it was sort of disciplinary, whatever measure.
Hmm.
Yeah, they felt you should. So up to now, I'm not the kind that I just buy unnecessarily. Yeah,
Okay.
that taught me something. That is how I saw it. But I've seen here, yeah, you have to work and you have to do something for your parent to earn something. That wasn't like that with me, and that I did that with my daughter the same way. Yeah, until recently she'll come to me for money because maybe for her to ask me money, it means it's way beyond her. Yeah, so when it happens, I don't hesitate. I give it. Yeah,
Yeah,
but she's on her own.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So what was your first actual job?
My first actual job, I don't remember exactly what they did, but I was the secretary. I remember the name, Bosans Limited, but I don't remember what they did. It was small, two friends. They established some, I have to find out. They established something in one of them, their homes. So I used to go there as the secretary or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And the money wasn't anything, but I learned a lot. That's why I learned to type, use computers very early.
That's good.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Back in Africa, you can imagine, I don't even remember. I'm now almost 60, and I don't remember at that time what I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I remember I think it's the first job I remember, right? Because I know as a kid, I was always trying to make money, um, because I loved baseball cards and uh
Mhm.
different types of playing cards and stuff like that. I remember um buying my first bike as a kid from money that I had saved. But my actual first job from what I remember was working in a mechanic shop for the entire summer. And I was like a helper. Man, I forgot about this.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I was in the South Bronx. It was a mechanic shop, and yeah, I was the helper. I would like sweep. I would like throw the sand when there was oil spilled. I learned how to change oil at how old was I? Maybe like 13, 14, something like that. Um, Learned about tools and stuff like that, and I was getting like $75 a day. Right.
Wow.
It wasn't bad. Right. Um, so yeah, that was my first job, right? And for me it was like independence. I was like, man, I got my own money. I could buy my own sneakers, right, for school and my own fitted hats. And um, we actually had to wear uniforms. So I would buy my own ties. I would buy a tie that matched my hat, that matched my shoe. And like, since we had to wear uniforms, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be color coordinated, right? Um, but yeah, because once children earn money, the next thing is like, what do I do with it? Right? What do I do with the money that I had? So I'll go over this. This is something that um I did with my daughter when she started her first, little business in fourth and fifth grade, and she was selling edible slime. I said, okay, we she was selling the slime. I said, all your materials cost this much. So once you make this amount of money, it immediately has to go into we'll do jars, right? So it has to go into a jar because these are your operating expenses, right? And there must be this certain amount of money in the jar. So it was like, I think it was like $60 or $50 or something like that. Because I was like, anytime you need more material, then you take it out of this jar, you get the material, and then the next, few sales, it goes back to the jar. Right? Said, can I order edible slime? That's fine. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Right? So that was the first jar that she had. Then I said, okay, you're gonna save a certain amount and you're gonna give a certain amount. So I told her out of every $10, give one away. right? Out of every $10, you give one away. Out of every $10, you save one, and you can spend the rest. Because she was already putting away like $6, so it was like six. So she had like $2 left over, right? Out of every 10, it was like six was for operating expenses, which is like reinvesting, which is what I was explaining to her, and then $1 to give, $1 to save, $2 to spend. That way she could um, enjoy some of her money, right? And at first, she didn't like it at all. But then I was like, hey, let's do this. Don't spend $1 for like a month, and we'll see how much money you have total. And then we'll go from there, right? So in her first month, she had like something like $180. And I was like, look at that, right? Look at that. You got $60 here. You have $120 left. So now, what do we do with this $120? Right. So then we, allocated it accordingly to those different buckets, right? To those different jars, right? Because something that I learned as an adult and something that I teach adults that I'm blessed enough to have have been teaching my kids this is if you don't give your money a job, it will just disappear. Money finds a way to do that, right? So we can teach it to our kids in a simple way, like, hey, have these jars. But we know as adults, if you don't have that discipline, it's kind of hard to just like start over, right? Because like usually we're like, okay, did we have this much in bills? We're gonna save this amount and we're gonna do this, and then there's usually some money left over, and then with that money that is left over, we usually do what, right? We go out to eat, we go shopping, we buy this, we buy that, because we're like, oh, we got money in the bank, we're good, right? So having these jars teaches important lessons, right? Like the spending jar, it teaches decision making. What am I going to spend my money on? I only have a certain amount. And so I need to use that wisely, right? Saving, right? The saving jar. We know as adults, we need to save money, right? So it teaches us and it teaches kids patience, right? Because instead of just spending the money immediately, no, like let's save for something. I remember my daughter wanted this what is it called? Silicone baby doll, right? Them things are like $500 for a fake baby. So I told her, I said, you save half, I'll put half in on your birthday. Because I don't know how smart it is to pay $500 for a doll. So she did that, right? She saved her money. Granted, she got some scholarship money from family family members, right? She got people to put in big portions of her half, but she got the doll. And in fact, she got two of them, right? So she ended up recruiting someone to pay to get her one, and then she was like, "Hey, you said you was gonna pay for one if I got half of the money." So go figure, right? So she learned her lesson, right? My son, he wants to get a new Nintendo Switch because the other one he left on a plane on vacation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had a very interesting conversation after that, right? So yeah, teaching kids to save money so that they can purchase something in the future, it's very big because then they learn that habit and it follows them to adulthood, right? And then the give jar teaches them to give generously, right? One of the greatest gifts that we can pass to our kids isn't just financial knowledge, it's a generous heart, right? Right? It's being generous. I remember just the other day we were at a red light, and there was a homeless man asking for money, and I gave $5 to my youngest daughter, and I told her to, I had her roll down the window and give it to the man. And she was like, "Hey, Jesus loves you," and she gave him the money. Right? We went to the supermarket. It was such a cute moment. I wish I had recorded it, but we went to the supermarket, and as we're driving back home, there's a guy in a FedEx truck, and he's got the door open, right, as he's driving. And we're at the red light, and she looks over, she's like, "Hey, let's give him some money too." I was like, let's not. He's working right now. Right? We can't just give everybody money, right? We give money to the people that need it. But I just love that because she was like, she it in I know that it internalized for her, right? Because she's like, "Oh, let's give him money too." Right? So all of these things are important, right? Saving is important, investing is important, growing wealth is important, helping others is important, right? So all of this stuff is important. Now, if you gave your child $30, how much would you encourage them to spend? How much would you encourage them to save? How much would you encourage them to give? There's no correct answer, by the way. All right. I'm just curious, trying to see like how much you could either unmute or put it in the chat. Somebody, anybody, somebody.
Did you say 30?
Yeah, so if your child had $30, how much would you encourage them to spend? How much would you encourage them to save? And how much would you encourage them to give? Right? Because the habit matters more than the actual answers. I'm just curious to see. So I know for me, like right
This is
now,
a tough question.
it's a tough question.
Mhm.
Yeah, so somebody said spend 15, save 10, 5. Okay, okay. That's good. So my first thought was spend 20, save 5, and give 5. Because part of that 20 would be invested somewhere, either in a book or a skill or something. Because I'm always thinking about growth. Build a mailbox library. What is that? Now I'm curious. What is a mailbox library? You can unmute if you want. All right. Well, as kids get older, right, we're not gonna be dealing with jars anymore, right? Like they have bank accounts. Like my oldest has a bank. Well, the three older ones have bank accounts now. Um, and they have their own cards, and then they'll have budgets and things like that, right? Mm. So, so yeah. So now imagine, let's say $50, right? They have $50. Boom, there's a spend bucket, there's a save bucket, and there's a give bucket, right? So how much how much would go into each bucket, right? We kind of just did that. So what would y'all say? What would y'all do? I'll give y'all a minute. Let's do 50 buckets because it's interesting that the 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 amounts tend to change when the money changes, right? So just curious. Um, People can get a book from the mailbox to read. So birthday money. Okay. Okay. So 30 spend, 10 save, and 10 give. Somebody said save all 50 for college. I like that. Spend 20, save 20, and give 10.
Mhm.
That's good. I like that. All right. So again, this goes back to, you know, every dollar should have a job, right? Because if you don't tell your money what to do beforehand, then the money kind of just spends itself, right? So I would encourage us all to do this with our kids, but also think about how can I do this for myself, right? If I had, like obviously the numbers are going to be bigger, right? But if I want to do that, if I want my kids to do it, am I being an example of that, right? Am I, let's say, if these numbers were times 100, right? If this was $5,000 that we're talking about, you know, am I spending, am I spending 2,000, saving 2,000, and giving 1,000, right? Am I spending 3,000 and saving 1,000 and giving 1,000? Or am I, like, what is it for you? Right? Because as I said, the numbers get different. The percentages are different when it's different amounts, right? Especially as adults, we have bills, we have responsibilities, we have things that we're working towards. So what would it be for you? Right. Now I'm gonna talk about the the three rules of money, right? And so the first rule being the rule of 72. And those of us who have never heard of the rule of 72, I'll simplify it, right? Albert Einstein considered compound interest to be the eighth wonder of the world, right? And he gets credit for the rule of 72. So how this works is you take the number 72 and you divide it by the interest that you're earning on your money. Why is this so important? Because Albert Einstein said, if for those who know the rule of 72 and understand compound interest, they will take advantage of it. And for those who don't, will pay for it. Right? So who's paying for it? People with a credit card, if you have a credit card or a car payment or a mortgage or even student loans, right? We're getting charged interest. So we're paying in compound interest. Those of us who invest money are taking advantage of compound interest, right? So think about how much interest is your money making you? Because if you work for your money and you work hard for your money, is your money working just as hard for you? Right? It's very important. Then we talk about the second rule of money, which is how money grows. Right? And there's really only three ways for your money to grow. Good night. I love you. See you in the morning. So there's really only three ways for your money to grow, right? There's fixed, variable, and index. So fixed is when you get a set amount of interest, no matter what. These are like bank CDs and um, you know, high yield savings accounts and things like that. Typically, these are really low and they barely outpace inflation. So can't really build wealth with accounts like that. So what a lot of people do is they put their money in a variable strategy where you can make a lot of money, but then you also run the risk of what? Losing a lot of money, right? And so when it comes, how does everyone feel about losing money? Right? I see heads shaking, right? Nobody likes losing money. But the thing is, society has taught us that we have to risk money in order to gain it, in order to make money. And that's just simply not true. Right? So as adults, we put our money in variable strategies like a 401k or a TSP or an IRA or the stock market, right? Where we can make money, but we can lose it also. And when we're putting money in these type of retirement accounts and they're set for retirement, how would you feel? How would you feel if you lost 20% of your retirement right before you were set to retire? This happened in 2022. This happened during the pandemic. This happened in 2008. It happened in 2002, 2001, 2000, right? It happens more frequently than we'd like to think about, right? So now there's a third option, which is index, right? Where we can participate in the upside of the market, just like a variable strategy. But if the market drops, your money is fully protected, right? That's like the best of both strategies, right? And then we talk about taxes, how money gets taxed. Now, as a kid, you didn't have to worry about taxes, right? I love that. That's what I was telling my cousin. I'm like, man, this adulting thing, I don't know. I want to go back to being a teenager where I didn't have to pay taxes, right? So there's three ways that your money gets taxed. As a company, we offer all three, but the first one is tax now, right? Which basically means you pay taxes twice, right? Because every time you get a paycheck, you pay taxes. And then once you invest the money, then you pay taxes on the growth of that money, right? Then there's a tax deferred strategy or tax later, which is where you delay the taxes to a later date. And now, what do y'all think? You think taxes are going to go down or they're going to go up? Up, right? They're going to go up. So if taxes are going to go up, does it make more sense to pay taxes in the future when they're higher or now at an all-time low? Right now, right? So I like to think about it like this. If I were going into business with someone, but they dictated the rules of the contract, right? Like imagine you're going into, let's do it like this. You're going into business with me. You and I are going into business, but I dictate the rules of the contract. So while today it may be 50-50, next week I may say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take 70%, you take 30. Or you know what? I'll take 90%, you take 10. Who here would sign that contract?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. Unfortunately, if anyone you know has an IRA or a 401k or a TSP or a 457 or a 403b, this is the contract that they sign with the government. Because nobody knows what taxes are going to be like next year or in 10 years or 20 or 30 years, right? So is that the best? For some, it may be, right? Because if you're paying 34, 37% on in taxes now, yeah, it makes sense to take a portion of that, delay it until later, where in retirement, your income is a lot lower. But that's not the majority of America, right? And then we have tax advantage strategies where this is where the wealthy put their money, this is where the banks put their money, right? Where you take now all of the money that's grown in these accounts can grow tax free and you can access it tax free. Right? There's excitement there, right? That's an exciting word. Tax free, sign me up. Right? So if you want to learn more about that, reach out to Latricia or myself. and we'll educate you more on how that works. Right. But again, I want you to think about, is my money working for me? Where is my money going? Right. Let's see. So let's talk about, a family budget meeting, right? And before any of you panic, I'm not suggesting you turn your dinner table into a corporate board meeting, right? The family budget doesn't have to be complicated. It can be a really healthy conversation, right? For us, we like to do what's called a personal financial review. And I've sat down with my wife and done this over and over again. In fact, we do it twice a year because finances change, right? Finances change. And sometimes, your expenses change or your income changes. So it's good to kind of um, update the budget, right? I would say every 6 months, at least bare minimum, um, once a year. I know people that do it once a month, right? Once a month, they sit down, they look at their budget, they're like, okay, how much did I spend last month? How much did I make? Where did all the money go? Right? Because think of this as a GPS before you take a road trip, right? If you never look at the map, you're gonna arrive somewhere, but maybe not where you intended, right? If you do a monthly family meeting, it could just include simple things, right? You don't have to map it all out like we do with a personal financial review. You could just ask some simple questions like, hey, what bills are coming up? What, are there any birthdays or vacations that's coming up? Right? How are we doing on our savings goals? Did we overspend anywhere? It's kind of like a review, right? You just review the budget. Right now, the first time is going to be, you know, getting down to everything. But after that, it's a pretty simple conversation, right? What financial win can we celebrate? Right? Celebrate, right? It's a good thing. So always celebrate your progress, right? Now, how many of us have ever held a family budget meeting? Okay. So I'm going to challenge you tonight. Okay. Hold your first meeting this month, right? Even 15 minutes can make a huge difference, right? Budgeting is important, but it's not just by itself going to build wealth, right? So, like, we want you to review everything, celebrate some wins, and then set some goals, right? This could be a 15-20 minute conversation. It doesn't have to be an hour long. All right. So now let's talk about protection, right? Protecting what matters most. So, how many of us here work for our money? Okay. So, if you work for your money, then you are the income generating asset. All right. And many of us haven't thought about it like this, right? But like, actually, Karen said this in the chat earlier, right? Think about electronic insurance, right? Because my kid lost his game on the airplane, right? So having insurance on the electronic. We all have insurance on our cars. I had a transportation business before doing this. I had to have commercial insurance on every single vehicle, and I had to have insurance on my employees, right? So we insure things, but if we are working hard for our money, are we insured? Right? Because if something happens to us, how's the money going to be made? Right? Think about it like a house, right? Every house has things protecting it. A roof protects against storms, doors keep unwanted things and people out, windows let light in, keeping your family safe. Now imagine If you took the roof off of the house, rain gets in, everything gets wet, everything is vulnerable, right? Family financial protection, excuse me, works the same way. And it's not about expecting something bad to happen. It's about being prepared if life doesn't go according to plan. Right? So think about everything that your household depends on: income, health, transportation, housing, savings. Each of these things support your family stability. And protection makes sure that one unexpected event doesn't undo years of hard work. Right? One illness, one accident, one unexpected loss. It could be a big deal. Right? The reason why I got into this industry is because I lost my father a few years ago. And when that happened, I experienced the importance of having protection. I experienced the importance of being financially prepared. We had savings, but my dad didn't have protection. He didn't have life insurance. And so I'm the oldest son of three, but one of my brother lives in DR. My dad was still providing for my mom, and my sister was living at the home. So without protection, funerals aren't cheap. If you've looked at it, it costs an average of 20, 30 grand to have a proper burial. Right? So now it's up to me and my sister to come up with the money because my mom didn't work. Right? So we're not expecting it. Like, my dad was healthy. He was playing basketball every week. But one day he was out walking the dog. It was his time to go. 8 heart attacks back to back. All right. So it's not about expecting something negative to happen, but things happen. 1 out of 3 people in America get diagnosed with cancer. 1 out of 4 people have a stroke. 1 out of 5 people have a heart attack. They happen in my family. Right? So if your household had one financial weak spot, what do you think it would be? You don't have to say it out loud, but just think about it. Right? So one of the simplest ways financial professionals like us estimate protection, and I'll go over this quickly, is through a formula called the DIME, DIME. We look at somebody's debt, we look at their income, we look at their mortgage, how much is left, and education and everything else. Right? Because if you think about it, if something happened to you, would you want all your debt to be paid? Absolutely. Would you want would you want your income to continue to go to your family? Absolutely. I know I would. Would you want the mortgage to be paid? Would you want to pass on a mortgage or a home? Right? Most of us would say we want to pass on a home. And would you want the kids to have their education taken care of and to have their future given a head start? Absolutely. Right? So now let's imagine 2 families, 2 similar outcomes. They both work hard, they both love their kids, and then life happens. One of them is unprepared and one of them is prepared. Right? The family who's prepared has peace. The other family just hopes everything would work out. And an unexpected illness occurs, an unexpected accident. Someone loses their job. And then suddenly the difference becomes clear. Because, see, preparation doesn't stop difficult moments from happening. It just gives a family more options when that happens. Think about a spare tire. I remember when I first found out where the spare tire was in our minivan. I never even thought about it. I'm like, you know what? Do we have a spare tire? I don't think we do. Right? We were at a soccer game at one of our daughter's our soccer game, and we were like, man, where's our spare tire? I had to Google it, YouTube it, found the spare tire, right, that I didn't know I needed. So financial protection works in the same way. We hope it never becomes necessary, but we prepare anyway because love prepares. When you love your family, you protect your family. Right? So I'll say it like this. How many of us have a fire extinguisher? Right? We all have a fire extinguisher. Now, how many bought it hoping to use it? None of us, right? If I would have asked one of my sons, he would have said, yeah, I want to use it, right? But he's not an adult yet, so he doesn't know. Right? See, preparation is about peace of mind. It's not like, hey, I know my house is gonna light on fire, so let me have this fire extinguisher, right? It's about protection, and protection is a part of financial confidence, right? So let's see. The favorite part of tonight's talk, right? Setting goals, right? Setting goals. So now we want to set some goals, right? Make sure we walk away with a savings goal, that we walk away with a giving goal, and then we walk away by having a family budget meeting. Okay. So let's all commit to this because it's important, right? It's important for us to have goals, number one, and it's important to involve our entire family. All right. So now imagine if everyone here made a better just one financial decision every day, one better one. Nothing crazy, nothing overwhelming, just one. Right. And that's what this is about. Right. So I know from experience, if all you did was track every single dollar that you spend, your finances will improve. If all you did was physically write down every single time you spent money, you would spend less money. And I know this from experience, right? Or let's say you have a no spend day, or start a savings jar, or you pack lunch all week. Maybe sell an unused item, right? Just take a look at this, screenshot this, right? And every week do one action, just one. Okay. So wrapping up here, these are some books that I would recommend for the family to read, right? And these are on different levels, right? I think Karen talked about the library, right? Yep, gave a library resource earlier. Thank you for that. So I've read most of these books, and when you apply them to your life changes, right? It's not about just education, but when you take action on something that you learn, that's when change occurs, right? So think of something that you can read with your kids, right? I don't know how old all of your kids are, but if they're older, maybe Greatest Man in Babylon, that's That's a pretty easy one to read. Or Millionaire Next Door. Psychology of Money is more higher level, but it's really, really good. Like really good. Or if your kids are younger, right? Maybe Money Ninja or the Bernstein Bears. I love this book, right? So there's that. And then, if you're wondering, like, hey, I kind of need help. Money isn't the easiest conversation to have, maybe with my spouse or with my kids or on my own. We're here to help, right? This is exactly why we wanted to have this event, Latricia and I, is so that families can get more comfortable with having this discussion, making sure that they talk about it, right? And not just that, but to go ahead and do a personal financial review, right? It's complimentary, right? But we'll look at income protection, right? We'll look at retirement, we'll look at saving for college, and also legacy planning. Love you. Love you. Good night. Um, where was I? So yeah, if you say, hey, I need some help with this, we'll schedule a complimentary financial review, and together we'll build a personalized roadmap for you and your family. All right. So here's our contact information. And thank you guys for being on tonight. All right. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions before we end the call here?